All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. We know we have people from all around the world that are joining us, the Symbiotic Network, Symbiotic Culture Lab. You guys are all a part of our growing community of the Symbiotic Culture Lab. So we have such an amazing agenda today. Hopefully each of you have been able to watch the 3 videos, and I'll drop those in a moment as Richard starts sharing of what we've done so far. These are in training videos. Richard's been so kind to get them edited so that you can watch them short, sweet, and to the point, really setting the stage of what's going on. I'm going to share with you the agenda today. And then we're going to talk about what unites us. So we're going to actually start out with a breakout, a networking breakout, and we're going to be asking a great question. I'm going to plant the seed now. Richard, is that okay if I plant the seed now?
That's great.
Just so there's, yeah. We're going to ask you to share a situation where you felt a sense of community. It could be family or within your community. So it's going to be short and sweet, 60, 90 seconds, but we're going to do a breakout room so you can meet some of your global neighbors. Then we're going to review some of the Neighbors for Neighbors. We've been on this journey of talking about how to start your Neighbors for Neighbors network, or join a Neighbors to Neighbors network. So we're going to keep going. And then we're actually going to open that up for Q&A, sharing experiences, any updates or celebrations you might have on your journey. Then we're going to review and next steps on the organizing the food network. And we'll be focusing, I know, Richard, I've got my spreadsheet, I've got questions, and we're going to be talking next steps with the script and what to say. Then we're going to break out into 2 rooms. So once we go through those 2 parts, I'm going to ask each of you to pick. I want to be in the Neighbors for Neighbors breakout room. I want to talk about that, or I want to be in the food network room. So, and if you know that up front now, it would be great to I'll tell you. I'm going to have you tell me after the Neighbors for Neighbors, hopefully, because I'm going to have to set up the breakout rooms and that. So I want to make sure that we are all set, and then we'll do a closing and open it up from there. So with that, what unites us? Richard, I'm going to pass this to you.
Thank you. I want to start by acknowledging some additional Hawaii contingent. Emily from Kauai. She's waving there. And Marta is from Hawaii. I think there may be someone else on the call. I think they were from Hawaii.
Nigel, right, yes, Nigel.
Okay, excellent. And then we've got Seb from Southampton in England. Britain?
UK?
Yeah, Britain, England, UK. Yep.
Well, with that, I'd like to start. We like to ground the beginning of the meeting in principles and values. And for the last several meetings, I've been showing an infographic, and it can get kind of, I don't know, kind of stale. So I wanted to bring it to life. What we're describing in building community is really about a way of being, a way of living. And as many of you know, I spent 5 months in Sri Lanka working with the Sarvodaya movement, which is really the world's largest values-based community network. And we were building a lot of food systems. And one of the things I was involved with was helping to build a food banking network in Sri Lanka. And I was sitting with Dr. Aryaratne, who's the founder of the movement. He's 90. And I was trying to figure out, how is it possible to scale a network like he did, starting in the early 60s, to involve millions of people? How's that possible? And what came to me, and I wanted to share because it's relevant to whether you're building a neighbor network, whether it's on your street, neighborhood, or whether you're building a larger food system network in your bioregion. So as I was looking at Dr. Ari, what comes to mind is the word spaciousness. There's just not a lot of crap like from the world, like that would normally you'd associate with an agenda-driven type of approach. So he wasn't doing it for business advantage. He wasn't trying to tell people what to do. He wasn't doing it because of a title that he had. And he didn't have any particular political or specific religious perspective that he was trying to convert people. He was literally open and he was holding space for community, because he realized that, yes, on a conditional level, we're all individuals, but ultimately he really epitomized embodiment of mutual benefit, where we're all part of one being. So in other words, yes, on a conventional level, we have to deal with individuals. On another level, in terms of relationship, he was holding space because he realized that his own personal development spiritually was connected to the community awakening. So there's no separation, absolutely none. So I'm reminded of a challenge I had once in holding space, and that's what I'd like to talk about. It was a meeting with 100 business leaders. It took place in a Methodist church in Reno, Nevada in 2003. And at the time, it was still division in America. Maybe it was less significant, but towards the end of the meeting, a gentleman stood up and he wanted to make an announcement. And what he was basically meaning was to the group of business leaders, hey, let's go in front of the convention center where President George Bush was coming for a campaign for his reelection. It was like a speech. And he basically said, let's go protest. And as a facilitator, I was faced with kind of a quandary, which is, if I say something, I could probably affect the relationship I have with this business person. So I decided to say something. So I effectively, what I said was, I'm really glad that you have passion for, your political point of view, but your point of view doesn't have any place here, because we're talking about strengthening our local economy. And this has to be a safe space for Democrats and Republicans, because it's not about politics. This space is about humanity and strengthening our local economic system. So holding space, whether you're building a network on a street, neighborhood, or in the community as a whole, it's beyond your likes and dislikes. It has nothing to do with what you personally feel in terms of any of your opinions politically, or your religious opinions. It's literally holding space. And it has to do with a love for human beings. Traditionally, that's called agape. It has to do with a higher form of love. And it's not related to liking people. Every day I have situations where, sometimes I'm just not liking people. I have business conflicts. Even currently, I'm having conflict with some of my a client. But that's not the point. It's how we respond to it. It's calmly, especially when we're facing a challenge or a difficulty. It's patience. So back to these different virtues or values. And it's being of service without complaining. These are really important to remember as we're engaged in practical activities, not just because this is a good thing to do. It's also, according to the success of Dr. Ari, it's a success strategy. Like, being like this is not only good for us and makes us feel better, it makes us more effective. We can work better with other people. We are more encouraging with other people, and we're all lifted up together. So that's I guess that's the holding space is the principle. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Richard. Beautiful. I could feel that in my heart. Could you guys feel that? So now we get into breakout rooms and hold space and meet some amazing people. We've strategically put you in places where we have incredible individuals, Marta, Richard, holding space. And so I wanted to remind you that this is not a time to promote your business. We want to hear your name and where you're from, but really this is the time to share that situation where you felt a sense of community. Love to hear that story of what that's like. We're going to give you an example. Marta, I know you have a great example. We want to keep them short and sweet, under 2 minutes.
Yeah, hi, I'm Marta. I'm live in Hawaii. So for me, one example when I really felt a strong sense of community is when I was part of an artist collective back in Reno. So I'm an artist and I moved to Reno. I didn't know any other artists in town. So I shared a studio. So that was a big space where artists could rent studio spaces individually and work on individual projects as well as on communal projects. So I joined that group of artists, and what we did once a month we had an open studio. So we had a potluck and invited the public to this potluck. So we would bring snacks and drinks and had coffee and open our doors, and people, usually art spaces or studios, people really are kind of hesitant to enter, but we would have music and people would come in and talk with us and buy some art or see what we're doing, what we're working on. And that really gave me a sense of belonging, and really we inspired each other, and we really felt a really strong sense of belonging and like a family of artists in town.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to share an example for me, Shannon, Satellite Beach, Florida. I was producing an event and all of my staff and employees had called in sick, a family emergency, different things happening, and showing up to the event with about 60 people, totally not knowing how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to pull it off. And I had like 5 or 6 people come up to me. How can I support you? What do you need? How can I support you? What do you need? And it was just, everything went off even better than we could have done with paid team when the community came together with that keyword, how can I support you? And so that was a true sense of community and what we built. And for me, I felt not alone and supported and uplifted. Great. Thank you, Richard. That's a great question. So we're going to get into breakout rooms. We want to do, 90 seconds, 2 minutes at the max. And we look forward to seeing you back here. Richard, anything else you wanted to say to set the stage on this one, or did we cover everything?
It's all good.
All right. Perfect. See you in a minute.
Let's break out here.
Okay. So yes, would love to hear from a few of you of how that experience was, or your sense of community. And you can either raise your hand or use a reaction at the bottom to raise your hand. Who would like to share? Chicky.
Yes. So I was just sharing with our group, since I kind of barged in at the last, that I was one of the early pioneers of the kind of technology that you need to make communities successful, because getting people together, it's just everybody to the coffee shop, right? Once they're there, getting people matched up with the right people is a little bit of art and black magic, right? And so I started doing communities literally 15 years ago, and had an online platform very similar to Zoom all the way back then, where we got people on a weekly call, and it's amazing outcomes.
Beautiful. Who else would like to share where they felt a sense of community? Were there very many family shares? I hope there was some good family shares. I know sometimes my business has been my family. So I was kind of thinking when Richard posed this question, I go, I have a lot more business shares than family shares or community shares, even things, fundraisers and stuff. All right. One more share. Okay.
I could go.
Okay, good. Thank you, Sebastian.
Yeah, it's a CSA that's near me. And not only were they restoring a piece of degraded agricultural land with the no dig method, they fully embraced the community to come in, volunteer, learn, share. And that was a really good sense of community I hadn't experienced in a very long time. So it wasn't just around growing. Everyone there was of the like mind, of the like heart, and it's a really good experience, and that kind of what hooked me into this general space, I suppose. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to dive right into the next piece. Richard, anything before we close that out and move on to the Neighbors for Neighbors?
No, I'm just really happy that we're kind of shifting format with the meeting process. It's a learning experience, and we're going to try to do more community building here, participation like that, rather than like kind of a formal like instruction or teaching. So this is really good. I enjoyed it. Hope everybody does too.
Beautiful. Did everybody get to share? That's probably a question. Anybody that didn't get to share that you want to share? Did everybody get to share? Okay, good, good, good. All right, perfect. So now we're going to go into the Neighbors for Neighbors. I want to give everybody, we reviewed these in the past videos, and I know there's a few of you that came in late, so I will drop that in again, where you can watch the first 3 videos to where we're going. In the last video, we go into great detail about this. Actually, the last 2 are really important, but I just want to give you access to these folders, just remind you where they're at. Let me do a screen share real quick. And we are, oh boy, okay, sorry. I have a lot on my computer screen, and I want to make sure I'm showing you the correct screen, because you might see all kinds of, here we go. So when you click on that link, that will take you into this folder. Richard and Marta have shared some of the samples that they used for their gatherings. Here's a sample flyer. And as each of you start doing those samples, we're so excited for you to share them with us. We wanted to provide you with something to get you started, and I'll show you that in a minute. But please, if you have something that you want to share, then we can start building this file so that people can go, oh, I like this folder or this flyer, and I want to use this flyer. But they gave us a great template that you can edit right here. This is more for internal use. So let me go ahead and open up this guide. And Richard, if you want to just do a quick review of this.
Oh, sure. So this Neighbors for Neighbors campaign came from a real experience in Northern Nevada in 2007. And what we did was, actually, I wrote an opinion piece in the daily newspaper about the decline of community, and wouldn't it be nice if neighbors could connect. And within 2 weeks, there were more than, I think there was like 25 simultaneous gatherings on 25 streets. And it ended up becoming a movement. And it went from, one street to immediately it was a network. And then we were able to get media involved, and they just love this kind of thing. And we were able to promote it, and at one point maybe having 100 gatherings happening on a regular basis. But what I learned is that the real important aspect wasn't just the gathering, it was the process of preparing for the gathering, which makes us so that we have to reach out. Sometimes we don't know neighbors. There's fear there sometimes, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. In the process, though, of going door to door and meeting neighbors that we might not know, you start discovering invisible needs. Like, we identified a lot of seniors that were alone. There were, single moms that didn't know each other that later connected and formed a co-op to, support each other with their children. There were even cases of, it was just seemingly random at this one street, recently widowed women that were able to connect. It just seems so random, right? But these needs are invisible, because in many cases, if, for example, you live in a suburban type neighborhood, it's got garage doors, and it's like this garage door experience in suburbia, especially in America, where you just kind of like, you cruise into your garage and your life is in your house and in the back. So what we found was that as people started getting to know each other, they started connecting on an ongoing basis. So it wasn't just a one-time event. So what we're talking about now is starting, at a level that you're comfortable with. So on your street, And if you want to share, I want to share a simple example of doing outreach. And well, actually, let's start with steps. I'll try to do it quickly. Yep. So what we found that works is breaking bread. And that's like, thousands of years of experience. It really works. And it's good to find others that you may know. Maybe you already know some neighbors. And we're talking about a street level, like 20 houses around where you live, and you could be in a condo, a townhouse, an apartment, could be a suburban neighborhood, single family dwelling, but it's that scale. Find some folks to create a pod, like a street pod, where you have a team, and you're not going to ask everybody in your neighborhood, hey, what day would work for you? You just set a date about 30 days out, which typically seems to work. We've attached a flyer here that you can use. Yeah, my last name is actually Flyer, but this is this is an example of the flyer to use. And we've included some in a Word form as single documents that you could edit. And, this is hokey, right? With the little hi neighbor thing, but just gives you an idea. We're not saying you use this exact thing. It's trying to stimulate your creativity. And basically, this is the beginning part of the process is, once you've gone door to door, and then you could even use Nextdoor, the private social neighborhood. Nextdoor itself as a technology is not really living up to its promise. Like 85% of the sharing in that private social network for neighbors is typically about safety and other kinds of issues. So it would be interesting to experiment as we work with, using Nextdoor to find out more from you how that works, because the technology's there, people are already connected there. So, do an event. There's all sorts of events. Just be creative and to your specific experience. And then you're forming an ongoing, what we call a street pod. So once you get people together, then you're in a sense going to the next level of really being able to gently organize around needs and offers. And what that looks like is it's something pretty basic. Once you go to the last page, if you don't mind, if you go up a little bit, what we learned, I'm sorry, go down. I got confused about up and down. So that's perfect. What we learned from COVID as we were locked down, or those of you who had to lock down in neighborhoods, is that, people were isolated. And we actually went out and we started identifying these needs and offers. So as you can see, you could have seniors that need help with getting medicine delivery. And I feel like I'm in Groundhog's Day in the neighbor guide. I feel like Bill Murray. Anyway, okay, cool. Loneliness is a need. People could be hungry. People could be short of money. People could simply need emotional support. This is probably the single most important awareness today, post-COVID, is literally the mental health and emotional health challenges. So as you can see, the needs on the left sometimes are matched by offers on the right. And these things happen organically and simply. They're not forced. We're not social workers. We're not psychologists. We're not offering therapy or counseling. We're not telling people what to do. We're just utilizing the natural occurrence of people coming together, getting to know each other. And as these needs surface and offers surface, a neighbor connector just makes simple connections. So that's the level of the street. The same principle operates in a bioregion if you're building these larger networks. So I think is that enough, Shannon, for now?
Absolutely. Perfect. So we're going to open this up for any questions, celebrations. We'd love to hear if there's anybody that's doing something already in this process, because we've been doing this for this is going on our 4th week. what they're doing. And I know, Richard, you're doing this in your area. I'm pulling things together. I haven't started yet, but I'm on the edge of that. Anybody that has already started this process and wanted to share an experience
Or even have questions.
or questions? Yes. Okay.
I'm getting excited about starting, and one of our newest neighbors to move into the neighborhood is the manager of the meat department at one of the bigger groceries in the neighboring town. So I think I'm really excited about that prospect.
Beautiful.
I have a short experience. I only just started yesterday. I was watching the videos, catching up during the week, and when Richard mentioned Nextdoor, the app, I thought that was brilliant. And there's quite a lot of people on there within our region. And I just put it out there, very loosely said, you know, is anyone interested in basically putting together a food network? Because we're seeing food prices go up, quality go down. And there's been quite a big, relatively big response, positive response. People saying they've got allotments and that they're generally interested. So I'm going to create a group over the weekend and gauge a bit more of what people's appetite is. But generally, there's a lot of gardeners starting their gardening career over here in the UK. It's becoming a big trend. So if that could evolve into some sort of, sort of local co-ops, that'd be quite interesting. So hopefully I can keep you all up to date, see how that goes, or if it doesn't go at all, we'll see what happens.
Jenna, can I ask a question?
Please, this is your part.
Seb, what's the population of your town?
I could give you the number that's actually
Oh.
on. I don't know off the top of my head.
Like a couple 100,000 maybe, or 50,000.
2,800.
What is it?
2,900. Apparently.
Oh, okay, so it's a smaller area. Okay.
Yeah, it's like a waterside sort of
interesting
set of towns. Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody's situation is different geographically. And the idea of building, a food system network, I suppose you can do it and kind of connect that to a street level neighbor gathering effort. And one of the things, so there are like three things that we're been talking about. One is local food system network in the scale of, say, in America, it's the county level. For many, that's a couple 100,000 people where you might have all these producers and consumers. And then we're also talking about the Neighbors4Neighbors. The scale there is either on a street, if someone's comfortable with that level. The larger level would be a neighbor network, which would basically connect people like yourself, Seb, and others who are working on a street with other streets in a neighborhood or in a region. So there's a related concept, and it's probably part of a food system network, which is a backyard gardening network. So in other words, that's a separate project. So one thing to maybe keep in mind is it's possible to merge ideas together. Sometimes it makes it more complex. So the ideas of, doing a gathering on your street is a particular straightforward task. I suppose you can connect it to connecting backyard farmers on your street or in your neighborhood, like if you're in a small region. But those are generally distinct things, but it'd be interesting to learn. That's what this is, why it's Symbiotic Culture Lab. It's a lab where we're learning. We have these basic tools and suggestions about ways to do it based on experience. However, maybe you'll discover things that work, like hybrid models, like bringing parts together. And we want to encourage that. So this process, as we move forward, is about being a learning community, learning from each other. So some things will work and some things won't work in your efforts. And that's what this brain and heart trust is about. people being able to support each other on this journey. And thank you for sharing, Seb.
Beautiful. So
I'll mention one. As I was listening to you, it triggered that I was even this morning, and meets every Friday, is our gardening. And everybody is growing different things here in Palm Bay, Florida, Central Florida. Anything you drop on the ground is going to grow. But we, for instance, my wife and I grow a lot of Chinese vegetables. Surprise, surprise. And everybody is growing so many different things, and everybody has a little bit of different knowledge about the dirt or the fertilizers, or growing the plants, or trimming the plants, or harvesting the fruits. And it's this community that comes together. This morning, we were surprised because suddenly we had 20 people that had heard about the gardening group. And we're usually 5 to 10 people sitting around. But because we had so many people, the groups formed into smaller groups. And everybody came in, so many new people came in with questions about their particular garden. And it's a sharing. And as you described also, it tends to be seniors, mature people who come together, and it's an opportunity to be together in the community. The garden group works very, very well. I wanted to just add that.
awesome. Thank you, Mark. Richard, anything before we move into this next segment?
Yeah, these are great stories. And Mark, as an example, and to everyone, is these ideas that we're sharing, we're doing it in a way where we're taking what we're naturally already doing and then adding things like, for example, building, in this case, a network of backyard farmers. In other words, just be really focused on a task like that. And we'll have information on best practices, suggestions on how to do that. There was something like that in Northern Nevada. They had a plan. It was a southern county, and it was called 1,000 Backyard Farm Initiative. And it was really amazing. So to go from the what you're doing currently, there may be ways of expanding that into a larger area, and to focus also on food production and sharing food. So there's some different dimensions to it that we could discuss moving forward, and anything we can do to be of help.
Beautiful. And so I just want to remind everybody, we're going to do a breakout room in a few moments, where I would love, if you already know, hey, I want to talk about the Neighbors for Neighbors, that piece, go ahead and put in the N numeric 4N, Neighbors for Neighbors. And then if you're going to want to be in the Symbiotic Food Network, or the Food Network, where we're talking on a larger scale, which we'll talk about in a minute. And if you already know which room you want to be in, go ahead and put that into the chat now, because I want to make sure that I divide everybody up. So Richard, we're going to move into that next phase, the Food Network. And I know I had a few questions just publicly to kind of further us along on our question. We wanted to review the script real quick. Does that sound?
Could I mention something before we move on?
Yes.
Just what's happening in Oahu, for example, since we have experience, we're developing, on the street that we just moved to, so 2 months ago. What happened was, I decided, since we have experience, to develop a neighbor network as a first step. And that's not necessarily something you have to do or want to do. I'm just sharing possibilities. So we found a Facebook group for our town. They had 13,000 members. The town's only 35,000. So I put out there what we're doing and said, is anybody interested in doing a, Neighbors for Neighbors? And I got a few responses. Plus I had a TV reporter contact me who was interested. And it just gives you an idea of scale, whatever you're comfortable holding space for. But how it evolved in Reno in 2007 was we were able to get all the media involved. So it became partly an event that kicked it off, where we had all the media, and we had like 100 different streets simultaneously start this process. So that's something to consider, that's a full neighbor network. So it's like a food system network, but it's more sophisticated in the way that you have to, develop and work with media, work with other organizations like Neighborhood Watch. You work with other organizations. So you're now connecting organizations that are concerned about neighborhoods. And that's a scale that we could all head to at some point. I just want to put that kind of, I don't know, taster out there about possibilities. Thanks, Shannon, for letting me.
Of course, this is where we learn. So we are actually extending this moving forward to an hour and a half, just to let you guys know. And we're looking at the month of October, doing this bi-monthly until we get real, lots of things moving. But anyways, we are getting close to time. So hopefully some of you can stick around for this next part, because it's going to be key. So Richard, we're going to dive into, I just wanted you to look at what I've done. Those of you that have followed along in the video, Richard is helping me formulate in my area, the ecosystem food network. And so last time he had advised where we had some short additional things to add. He wanted us to identify the type. So Richard, I'm just wondering if there are items here that you see to add. And if you guys did not see this, this is really what we're looking for. Correct, Richard? You want to talk? I'll turn this over to you.
So a local food system network, the goal is to connect all of the producers, so like farmers and ranchers, and all the consumers not being people as individuals, but consumers of local production, farmers markets, grocers, food co-ops, and also other organizations that are involved in food, to build a new network, not a separate organization per se, but a way to really connect producers and consumers to increase production, to create like really effectively, it's a marketplace that could end up as its goal to have more food grown locally wherever you are, and more food consumed locally. Do this as simply as possible. And I believe, Shannon, you wanted to talk a little bit about, I think we're going to have time for breakouts, so I'll make it like really quick on the script. We had talked about, Shannon's at this next stage. Once you identify all of your the leaders, the people that are business owners in food, people leading organizations, what's the approach? And the script obviously is just a guidelines, and don't expect people to like literally follow this, but it's the general feeling tone. So the way that what do you say when you're contacting these people? Many of you may not know. Well, one thing to do is to find people that you do know that can give you a connection, an introduction. So then it's not like calling somebody without any context. But it's very straightforward. You'd like to explore developing a local food system network where we're connecting producers and consumers so that we can grow and consume more food locally, and letting them know that we're helping them to build a marketplace where everybody benefits. Well, obviously, everybody has different reasons to participate. If you're talking to an organization, a leader in the food system, obviously they have enlightened self-interest. They want to expand their capacity to produce as a business, or an organization to raise funds, that kind of thing. So that's a concrete, tangible outcome, and one reason why they would want to do it. Why we want to do it and facilitate it is that we're concerned about supply chain, we're concerned about food availability, food insecurity, and this is one motivation that we're doing. So you have to meet people where they're at. I think we should go on to the breakout sessions just so we don't run up against the time. Sorry that was rushed, but
it's okay. Perfect. Thank you. That was very helpful. We have a script, and Steve, you're the last person I have to know where you want to be, and then everybody else, we're ready, unless you're flexible.
I am flexible, but I do have to leave early because we have a house guest who has to leave early. So we have to
Okay, perfect. All right, we're going to go ahead and open up the rooms here. And I just want to let you know that Richard is leading the food network piece. And then Marta is leading the Neighbors for Neighbors. And we are, Richard, I'm doing it for a little bit shorter.
Okay,
Just to
sounds
let you
good.
know.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Here we go.
Yeah, thanks for that, Richard. That was good.
I think we're waiting for, okay, excellent.
Yeah. So Richard, if you want to just finish that sentence real quick, and I know we're just wrapping up, but that was
Oh,
really
that-
important what you're sharing.
Yeah, so we're talking about going from within a food system from a mapping to then how then do you contact some of these folks to connect them? And Seb brought up a good point. Maybe you can do both at the same time. What we're suggesting is what we're talking about is a more refined breadcrumb trail. So instead of just going out to 100 leaders kind of at random in a sense, and then talking to one leader and they might get excited and connect you to others, what we're recommending is do some analysis first to identify those that have higher network connections. So instead of going to 10 different farmers markets and their leaders, find a farmers market network or an association that already knows all those farmers market leaders. That way you're going to one who's already highly leveraged in their connectivity. Once you do that, so now it's still a breadcrumb trail when you talk to them, but you'll really refine your search. So this process of both mapping a system and also communicating with others to begin the networking process is probably 30 to 60 days before you'll even have the first meeting. So that's key, is patience and to be very specific and understand what's happening. And that's what we hope these subsequent calls are about, is we're practitioners, we're learning from each other, best practices, what's working, what's not working, and we just keep refining it. But we provide the guideline of the tools and the steps that have proven that they work, whether it's organizing a neighborhood or a network.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I just want to highlight a couple things. And I know, Richard, you said it's okay if we stay just a couple minutes after for those that need to go. We do have a feedback survey there. Please, we'd love to get your bigger view feedback, but we also have a poll here just to let us know what you are interested in with the Culture Lab. Would love to hear from some of you guys with the breakout room, because I know for us, Richard, we could have been in there 20 minutes. That was some really good stuff, what was happening. And I also want to let you know that we're temporarily using Signal right now as ongoing communication. So I'm going to drop that in the chat room. We invite you to join us there, because this is, a big part of connecting at all these different levels is that technology. This is just a Band-Aid so that we can stay connected, get reminders. People are sharing some gardening tips and some neat stuff. We do want to remember that there's no politics in there. It's all about what we want to see in the world. And Richard, anything else you want to add about that communication channel?
Yeah, so that's evolving, and we're looking at possibly using Discord as an initial tool, hopefully within next couple of weeks, because each region can have their own channel and then sub channels based on all these different activities happening in that region. Seems to be effective, and then a general discussion there. So that's the idea. This is a learning community. We're learning from each other, and then we're expanding our efforts, and then we hope to grow.
Perfect.
Thank you everybody for coming.
We'll be back here next Friday at 2:00 Eastern Standard Time. Would love to, Richard, if it's okay, just open it up for anybody want to share from what they had in the group. Anything else as far as to officially do a close that you wanted to add, Richard or Marta?
No,
You're good. Okay,
great.
perfect.
I really like the format for the meeting. more breakouts.
Absolutely. All right. Anybody want to share something, maybe an aha moment, or maybe there was still a question you had from your breakout before we close out the event? And we want to keep it to, about what we're doing here, ideally, instead of promoting maybe something we're working on outside of here.
Do you recommend to go to like the city councils? Because we have a lot of food trucks going every Friday night. There's something going on in the community. And I mean, like the mayor knows what's going on with all of these places, and each town has their own mayor and their own, like every Friday night, there's a big community gathering. Once a week in Cape Canaveral, and then in Cocoa Beach, and then in Satellite Beach. And somebody has that hub of all of that information.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. The way that this kind of, I think you're talking about a food system network in a region, the way it relates to government is that government and officials like city council people have aides that assist them. Underneath cities and municipalities sometimes are neighborhood associations. Cities, municipalities want to get feedback. Now it's in their own institutional frame, right? They'll have formal meetings, but there are neighborhood councils. And then at the level in the United States, there's a county level, there's county supervisors, and they also have a lot of significant interest. So as long as it's not a political connection, we want to involve the government officials as partners, and they can be allies. In fact, that we did the same thing in Northern Nevada. Oh yeah, and once it gets going, then yeah, they're coming to meetings, and then you'll have other quasi-governmental officials like the purchasing or the chief buyer for your school district. So that's like your school district is kind of a quasi-governmental agency, public, and those are key people because they're always looking for opportunities to source local. So great question.
And Karen asked a great question. What's the best way to share what we're doing with others? These ambassadors of the Symbiotic Network and the Symbiotic Culture Lab. And so we do ask that everybody watch those videos. That's part of why we started this out, is kind of laying the foundation and the training. And so those first few videos are going to be doing that. And we ask that you do that before you invite them to the group, and definitely before you invite them to Signal. And if you get them into those places of connecting, just let them know that we're sharing the vision we want to see. Richard, do you want to add anything else on that?
Yeah, I just dropped the Symbiotic Culture Lab YouTube channel in the chat, so you might want to have that. That probably is a good introduction to getting others involved. So the other thing is I'm just finishing an article, literally like yesterday, in Shareable, and kind of a digital magazine focusing on people sharing in communities around the world. So we'll have I think it's a really good description, and it's I think it'll provide another vehicle to get people to start reflecting on it. So
awesome. And then I did use this, Karen, I put it in order, right? Because Richard, they may go to your thing and they might start with the last. And so until we get that circuitry, I think if we share, okay, here's video 1, here's video 2, here's video 3, then that way they can follow along. But all those are on his channel.
Yeah, I'm going to copy.
I was able to do it, but it'd be great if you laid it out. Thank you.
Excellent.
Perfect. Yeah, you got that in the chat, right, Karen? Awesome. Any other questions or comment? Marta, I want to hear how your group was. I wanted to be in 2 places at the same time.
It was great. It was great. I really liked what people were sharing. If that's okay, I really like to also keep in mind, and that was a nice reminder. Joy shared that she lives on a ranch, and all her neighbors are spread out pretty widely. So it's not like knocking on your next door's neighbor's door. So that gave me a different perspective. Like, neighbors don't have to be next door; they can be a couple of miles down the road. And it was really exciting what she was sharing, what they're doing. So yeah, thank you for sharing all these different perspectives. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Anything else before we say goodbye? All right, my closing remarks are grow enough to share. There's plenty for everybody.
Thank
And-
you so much.
And thank you, Richard, for all that you're giving and sharing. And I encourage you guys, there's a donation button that we have. If you feel inspired to donate, I'll pull that up real quick. Please give. I know he's working on his books and almost manual and things like that. I'll go ahead and drop that link in there. And Richard, thank you for your servant heart and all that you do to continue to bring us together. So I've shared that there.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon, for your kind words, and just so happy to be here with you. And it's a hopeful journey. It really is. And it definitely is hopeful when we connect with others that are aligned with this positive intention. And there's nothing that can stop this kind of process because it's aligned with, powers of goodness itself. So thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Richard.
you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.
I'm going to end with some laughter this time. Yay!
Yay.
Bye.
Get us off laughing. All right. Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye.
Remember to save the chat. There's all kinds of good stuff in the chat. 3 dots
Thank you,
next to
Shannon.
the
Thank you, Shannon.
text. Bye for now.